Wes Craven's 1996 horror classic needs no introduction. The film perfectly straddles the line of a traditional slasher to a satirization of the genre as a whole. The film's brilliant direction mixed with its cast of memorable and iconic characters adds to its overall legacy as one of the greatest horror films of all time. I'm certainly not alone in praising this film in all of its horrific glory. However, over the years, we have certainly seen the hibernation of this franchise. In a day and age where horror films and nostalgia are at its peak of popularity, it seems fitting that Scream would get the dreaded reboot treatment eventually. The idea of rebooting a classic beloved franchise is certainly controversial in today's world. John Carpenter's Halloween has seen a recent revival with Halloween in 2018 and the newly released Halloween Kills, and both have seen both praise and criticism for the ways it revitalized the franchise. However, most can agree 2018's Halloween was a solid return to form for the franchise. Scream is unique in the sense that, unlike most slasher films that receive sequel after sequel, capitalizing on the success of the first film, Scream only had 3 sequels and a TV show. While 4 films and a show can be seen as too much, it certainly is very tame compared to other horror franchises pumping out sequels almost every year, where Scream was every few years, or even longer. It certainly didn't overstay its welcome compared to other slasher giants. I'm saying this to point out that the new reboot that is coming out in a couple days as of recording this has a unique opportunity at the moment. Due to Scream not being in the public eye for the past decade, the film has an opportunity to revitalize interest in the series again, but with most attempts at a revival, the film's release can go one of 2 ways. Best case scenario, the film can be a potentially great reboot that breathes new life into the franchise, garners the attention and interest of a younger crowd who most likely hasn't seen the original film, and can pave the way for a new and creative take on the formula. Or the film can sadly miss the mark and lead to the series hiatus yet again for the next couple of years. Excluding the TV series as it's not really canon, the series has remained dormant since 2011 with the release of the 4th installment in the story. The original director Wes Craven stepped down from making any more sequels in the series, and there hasn't been a new release since then. He simply didn't want a series of films to grow tired with unnecessary sequels that had nothing interesting or new to say. As a major fan of the franchise, I thought I would share what I personally believe this new reboot needs to get right in order to succeed. What is the nostalgia trap, you may ask? It's a concept of bringing back a beloved property or characters of a beloved property for what else? Fan service. Now, there's nothing wrong with nostalgia at all, and there's nothing wrong with a little bit of fan service every once in a while. However, it simply cannot be the only thing we as audience members thrive off of. If we only bring back characters for the sake of bringing them back, then we aren't really doing those characters justice, are we? Giving them no substance whatsoever and just parading them around just to please audience members isn't very respectful in my eyes. A recent piece of media that had this bad was the 2nd season of The Mandalorian. While the 1st season was incredibly strong and rich in its storytelling, giving us a fun new adventure with new characters, the 2nd season brought back beloved characters such as Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, and Boba Fett for fan service purposes. And while Boba Fett and Luke at the very least seemed integral to the plot, Ahsoka Tano felt absolutely unnecessary, and it seemed as though the writers only included her because she is currently popular at this time. You could have literally inserted any other Jedi in her place and the story would remain the same. This is what I'm worried about in the new reboot. The writers need to have a good reason as to why these characters are returning to begin with. It made perfect sense to make a sequel to the first Scream movie. The first film challenged the character of Sidney Prescott, turning this normal teenage girl into someone I truly look up to, a courageous hero who has persevered through the very worst of odds. Scream 2 explored her character even further, focusing on her life after the Woodsboro incident, showing us that she's now attending college, trying to return to some form of normalcy, yet she's haunted by the events of the previous movie. It gave her more depth and a new arc to work with. Seeing her tackle her fears head-on throughout the film, while coming to terms with past events and learning new truths from past events, was such an interesting and great decision for the character to take. It also expanded upon Dewey and Gale's relationship, further giving the two more chemistry that was very fun to watch. The film had new twists and turns, as well as further expanding the story for the better. The new reboot needs to absolutely do what Scream 2 did for the series. Give us new and interesting arcs for these beloved characters, and not just bringing them back for the sake of pleasing the fans, and also not just repeating their same storylines over and over again with nothing new. In order for this film to truly succeed in my eyes, it needs to deliver a new, interesting story that could hook us into the franchise once again. This is something that later sequels struggled with to varying degrees. There really wasn't a need to continue the story after Scream 2, in my humble opinion. Besides seeing how Dewey and Gale could start a new life together, I personally saw Sidney's story already have a satisfying conclusion at the end of the second film. But just because there isn't a need doesn't mean the writers can't come up with some new brilliant and interesting ideas to continue the story. And that's exactly what Scream 3 felt like it was going to do. Give us a reason to return to this franchise and its characters. However, I think most can agree that it wasn't as good as the first or second film. Not to say these films didn't have great ideas and moments of their own, because they certainly did. It was wonderful seeing Dewey and Gale get married, and the idea of Sidney going into hiding and changing her name was a cool concept. The series is known for satirizing traditional horror tropes in the slasher genre, so the first movie introduced this concept and kept this concept fresh. But you can see it start to get tired once Scream 3 and 4 rolled around. It started to satirize cliche and unoriginal aspects too much that it instead doubled back on itself and became cliche and unoriginal. You could also see the cracks in the director Wes Craven. It wasn't too hard to notice the amount of sequels taking a toll on the late director's well-being. Matthew Lillard, the actor who played Stu in the first film, went on record stating that Wes Craven was growing tired of the sequels, saying that he was miserable while filming them. This doesn't necessarily mean he was running out of new and original directions to take the series moving forward. It just shows how a director's reluctance to make sequels to begin with can impact their filmmaking. And since his tragic passing in 2015, there was so much uncertainty as to if a Scream reboot would even be good without the main captain steering his own ship. These writers have the dirty work of not only doing justice to the franchise itself, but to also do justice to his profound director and the characters in the movie. This reboot needs a fresh, new direction similar to how the first film set boundaries and reinvented an already tired formula. It needs to expand on the world building set in place by the previous films. I certainly have optimism that this film can succeed and then some, however, anything is certainly possible. The directors and writers of this new reboot have the hard job of following up a legacy that is bigger than itself. They have the hard job of not outdoing, but rather adding to and respecting a beloved horror franchise that was known for reinventing the same old and tired formula. As a major fan of this franchise, I want to have a reason to return to Woodsboro. I want to have a reason to see these beloved characters again. I want to see a new cast of characters win me over as they piece together the mystery of this town's mysterious past in their own way. I want to see Dewey and Gale overcome struggles they will face in their relationship because they both know they can't live without each other. I want to see Gale inevitably partake in the spotlight again, as well as connect more with Sidney, knowing that they will stand by each other till the very end, whether they want to admit it or not. I want to see Dewey return with meaning, because ensuring the safety of his friends is what will give him the courage to face his past once more, since he is undoubtedly a hero. And I want to see Sidney Prescott, where she was once intimidated by the Ghostface killer, now fearless and ready to face them head-on without hesitation. In the same way Scream brought back audiences through smart and clever twists and turns that kept them guessing as to how the story would unravel and who wouldn't see the light of day again, this reboot needs to do the same for modern audiences.